guys, so class is apparently canceled, so I'll get back to the car doing this earlier than I thought. There she is. Drove this thing in the fucking rain for nothing. Jesus Christ. In the middle, do nothing. What are you looking at? Hey, what is going on, guys? Finally made it to the park. I'm sure most of you already know how it looks because, you know, I post it on Instagram like multiple times a day. Tuning in from the last video, it's changed quite a bit. And I mean, you know, quite a bit, considering last time I made a video, this thing was on my old work wheels, which I managed to sell in order to get these. And you know, it wasn't really the car it is right now, considering I couldn't even freaking drive it. You know, I spent like the first 2 months with this car literally not even driving it, just doing shit to it. Main reason for that was I really wanted this car to be mechanically, you know, sound in every single way, because I was really planning to drive it. You know, like, although the car's low, I like to really drive my cars, and when I say that, I mean, like, I don't really like to slow down like to 10 miles an hour for bumps or anything. I just kind of take them on. That's why, you know, the bumpers like that, I don't really care. But I also like them to look really good and be really low. And I was planning on drifting this too, you know, kind of like a daily drifter type thing, if that's even a real thing, because that's what I've been hearing a lot of people use that term, daily drifter. And this thing is a pretty solid daily drifter. Drive it for the past 2 weeks. I've been using nothing but this car. Before that, I was kind of on and off with using it, but the main you know, struggle with this car is it doesn't have a fuel gauge, or it does have one, it just doesn't work right. Gas light sometimes works too, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I'll know when it's running out, because, you know, I'll kind of like get on it a bit in first gear, usually taking off from a light really quickly, and that'll cause like the gasoline in the tank to like slush around. And if it's that low, it actually causes like a giant miss in the car, where like for like a full second you just don't have power and it sounds like the car just shut off. And that's where I know, like, okay, like, you really need to get to a gas station. I put $20 in it like every couple of days. You know, let's discuss the things I've actually done to this thing. I know it looks different, but it doesn't look different compared to how I got it. Meaning, for the most part, it's the same look-wise. That's what everyone thinks, but I did so much to it mechanically. Like, a lot of the control arms and tow arms and camber arms and stuff like that were like loose, in the sense of like lock nuts and stuff like that. So I spent a good amount of time. I literally like took out most of the suspension in this car and kind of re-greased a lot of the tie rod ends for the adjustments. As you saw in one of the videos, me and my friend Dan, who did most of the work because he could fit under the car, we changed the steering rack. and I thought it'd be hard to find a right-hand drive steering rack, but it was only $150 from Malaysia, and it actually came in 5 days from eBay, surprisingly, and that's been working great. I got a teen steering kit, which is the inner and outer tie rod with a rack spacer. The rack spacer is only about, I would say, like 8 to 10 millimeters. It's not one of the crazy 16 millimeter ones, which I will be getting soon. But this thing has a pretty hefty angle now because of that, because it has lower control arms that are extended by about 25 millimeters. And maxing out the knuckles, the thing gets some angle. I really wouldn't know what to say in terms of actual degrees, but it gets some pretty good angles, surprisingly. And it's actually really nice to learn on it to drift like that, because, you know, instead of just fully spinning out and going into something, I can just completely lock the steering and it'll just save itself. And it's kind of nice, you know, instead of like worrying about hitting into curbs, I'd rather just like clutch in and then fully lock the steering and it saves itself. But the thing has no power steering, so that's been kind of difficult to learn how to drift on it. It's not that hard, mainly because I daily it. It's just really, it's gotten a lot more aggressive since I welded the diff, which is another thing it brings me to. I know I honestly thought I had an open diff in this car. I'm pretty sure that's what I said in my last video. But when I took it off, it turns out to be a VLSD. But I think it was just really shitty because it wasn't locking at all, and it had like barely any fluid in it. It was super chunky and stuff like that. So I did take it out. I welded the VLSD, not me, but my friend, or my friend's friend, you know, paid a welder like $50 to weld it, put a new fluid into it, you know. That was like a day or two thing, mainly because of waiting for it to be welded. But this thing has a welded diff now. Really not that bad to daily drive at all, to be honest. Everyone makes it seem horrible. You know, I drive this thing in the rain, like today, to school, and you know, everyone says like, oh, your rear end is like gonna kick out while you're going around a corner. I have not had that happen once. Maybe it's because I have 265 tires on this, and they're like so big, and the car only makes like 220 wheel horsepower. That's probably why, but you know, I have not had any bad things. I had a whole camber type phase with this car. The whole thing with that was I really didn't feel like fitting the rear wheels when I got them. Like the front, I love the front fitment. It's actually functionable. It's pretty goddamn nicely fitted. It like basically touches the tires, you can see right here. They're 12K springs up front that I preloaded the shit out of so it wouldn't travel. The rear springs are still dropped. I got the car with all drop springs and whatnot, so I had to fix a lot of that, and the stiffness and the preload of the actual things. But the front fitment's great because it's about negative 11 degrees of camber, and when I fully lock with the steering kit, the tire is actually perfectly straight, meaning like it has a full contact patch, so like the actual camber is doing its job. But I had about negative 10 in the rear, and like it looked all right. It wasn't really fitted or anything. I didn't really try too much to fit it or anything. I just added a bunch of camber and had this over fender be 50 millimeters, which is what it is normally. But then, you know, I decided, hey, you know, I realized I have no grip at all with the camber, and you know, while drifting, I mean, I have no grip. And so I decided to arch out this over fender how it was when I got the car, which is basically there's like a bolt here and a bolt there, and you basically squeeze that side in and you squeeze this side in and you bolt it in. As you can see the body line, how in it goes, and it's kind of hard to see with the rain, but this thing's basically like about a 90 millimeter arch now, and I have about negative 2 degrees of camber now on this wheel, and these are 11.5s, negative 30 with 265 tires on them. They are Formula D tires, Maxxis Drift compound, so they're actually very hard to break loose in the dry weather. Like, I mean, I really have to work this fucking thing to keep it, you know, sliding, but my god, does it grip. Like, wherever it's pointed, it just goes straight, you know, into that direction. It doesn't like slide about. It doesn't feel like your rear end is gonna like slip out anymore. But no, this thing like really grips up and it just goes the direction you're trying to drift into. As a part for the engine, not sure if I got it this way, but it was running on 5 cylinders. I think I did, maybe. I don't really care. I mean, the first coil pack happened to be unplugged, and I mean, the first time I ran out of gas with this thing, I did take out all the coil packs and the spark plugs. So I don't know if I might have accidentally unplugged it that time and not plugged it back in, but I don't remember doing that. But I mean, whatever. So yeah, the engine was shaking like crazy, and the whole issue was like, why is it doing that? And I'll show you the engine bay. You know, finally fixed that. Runs on 6 cylinders. Replaced the spark plugs to colder temp or colder spark NGK plugs, and the thing actually, like, I got them to 0.8 millimeters, which is recommended for like stock power RBs and stuff like that. The turbo gets about twice the boost, which is weird because it doesn't have a boost controller or anything like that, so it makes it like, why is it doing that? Because you know, usually, stock PSI is 8 PSI, but I realized there's actually a bunch of vacuum lines, and there's something called a restrictor pill on an RB on the stock intake manifold, and that's been deleted by the previous owner, and so has the idle air control valve, IACV, whatever it's called. So that kind of makes it hard in the sense that this turbo is literally not supposed to go over 13 PSI, otherwise it literally will blow the wheel because it's a ceramic wheel turbo. So I will be upgrading that to a top-mount header setup with a top-mount turbo, so it'll sit right here, up here, where you can see it, with a new downpipe and a wastegate coming out of the hood and stuff like that. I did redo all the intercooler piping, and when I say that, I mean like all the T-bolt clamps and stuff were a bit too loose or too big. So I did blow off this charge pipe once. That's why there's this ugly cooling hose clamp on there. I put in a new intercooler. I believe the one that was in there was like some no-name eBay one, because I really could not find any type of name or anything. So I got a Blitz intercooler for cheap off of my friend, which is actually a smaller core, but that's kind of good because it didn't really need that big of a core considering it's a stock engine running, just a bit more boost. As you saw, I did have this intercooler in there, and I did wire up one single giant fan onto a switch that can be turned on whether the car is on or off. And then I have a constant fan right under here, under this shroud. That's the OEM fan, and that one, like right now as I'm driving in this rain and stuff like that, it's about 55 degrees, give or take. I don't have that main one on right now. I literally just have the constant one, and it's keeping it up to temp like completely fine. I replaced that fuel line because it was seeping fuel. There's a lot of little things that I'm actually even forgetting now because it's been so long. But the engine runs, great. Oh yeah, the starter actually blew. By blew, I mean like it just stopped working, everything melted. So I took it to my local starter rebuild place, and it was $100 to replace everything but the housing because everything was fried. And I put that in now, and it's perfect. Like this car, like I said, it turns keys, turn key, turn on, drive it wherever the hell you want. Only thing to worry about, gas. Like literally, that's my only issue. If it had a working gas gauge, this would be a very reliable car. I put on this carbon fiber thing. I don't think you guys seen that, but it came with the car. I just had it off because I was doing a lot of the wiring underneath it. And I was straightening out a lot of the things about the front end fitment and stuff like that I was being anal about, so I was like had to make sure it was perfect. That's it under the hood. I've actually decided to keep this engine for a bit. I wanted to do a 1J as soon as possible and didn't want to put any money into this, but I've decided honestly, like I was about to get an RB25 or RB26, and after researching, don't get mad at me when I say this, but the RB20 is better in the sense of keeping under 300 wheel horsepower, mainly because of the fact that it revs to 8,000 RPMs, which is fucking high as hell, and has a really short stroke with very thick rods, and the engine doesn't really, it takes more abuse than the other engines, funny enough, if you're staying under that power. Obviously an RB26, RB25, big single turbo built engine, that thing will be a monster. It's over 500 horsepower and you have a crazy car, but I don't think I'll be doing that high of a horsepower anytime soon. I'm really just trying to focus on getting rid of these puny injectors, which are 270cc, and going to RB26 injectors, which are 470cc, and doing a whole header setup where the turbo sits up here with a bigger turbo with an external wastegate to keep the spool up and everything, and just somehow tuning it, probably using this tune on the stock ECU, and then I should easily be making 300 to 350 wheel horsepower on this thing, and that would be more than enough to drift it. I got the trunk to shut. It didn't have good fitment, so I actually have a zip tie. Well, it's latched right now, so it's not going to come up, but I have a zip tie hooked on the inside of the trunk, pulling it down so that the fitment of the actual panels is like perfect. Otherwise it's not going to open, but it sits like kind of up here almost. And sense of this car for body wise, which everyone thought was kind of going to be my first thing, because obviously I don't want it to stay looking like this. The smaller reason being, like, obviously I want it to look like its own car. I don't want it to look like how the last owner had it. It looked really good, but I obviously want to do my own thing. But I do want the 45mm ones, which pop out to here, and they have the aggressive vents over here. And then I want the hood that has the vents in it, obviously for cooling, because this metal one is god fucking horrible. The rear is already pretty situated. I don't really know much. Some people say do a wing. I really don't like wings on S14s. Maybe a D-Max little tiny duckbill that goes off. That's literally it. Maybe a roof wing. That's literally it. I don't like 326 power on S14s. I like it on S13s. This car so far, be sure to like, subscribe, and whatnot, and tell me what you think about this car, because when you guys comment and stuff like that, it really helps me make other videos, because then I feel like I'm actually talking to an audience versus just talking to myself about my own car. Enjoy.